Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about how to sort strings in alphabetical order, how to assign values to an object from a text file, and how to write that same data back to a text file. Okay, so here I have a simple class called book. The fields are title, author, and year. And then here's a parameterless constructor, and I initialize it with not available, and a default year of 1900. And then here's a simple display book info method. Displays the title, the author, the year, and this line here to separate. If I display multiple books at the same time, then this will separate them. And then here I have a text file. I have 5 books here, and they're in the same order as the class, as the fields of the class. Alright, so I have the title, the author, and the year. Then I have the title, the author, and the year, title, author, year, title, author, year, title, author, year. Okay, so then we can go to our book test with our main method. And don't forget the system.io namespace when you're working with files. Here I have an array of books with the length of 5. Here I have the path to my text file. And in the last video, we remove this @ symbol. Then we get this error here, and then you have to escape all the backslashes. Alright, but instead of going that route, it takes a little bit, you can put the @ symbol, and you won't have to escape any of the characters anymore. So that might make your life a little easier. So I thought I would show you that. Okay, so then here I have a read from file method. So the method takes 2 parameters, or 2 arguments. It takes an array of books, and it takes the file path. Then I have another method. It takes just the array of books. And then notice here I'm calling the method, but I don't have any objects that I'm calling. I'm not calling books.test. I'm not doing this, although I can. But since the methods are here at the bottom, I don't need to do that. Right, they're in the same file. Right, and we're doing that because the methods I wrote are static methods. Right, so let's say I remove the static keyword from the methods here. Then I have errors. And it says here, the object reference is required for non-static fields, method, or properties. Right, so since these methods are no longer static, now I have to have some sort of object reference, or I have to create an object. But to avoid that, I have these set to static instead. Okay, so I have the read from file method, the display book array method. Then here I pass a write line to tell the user to press any key to sort. Then I'm going to sort the books. Then I'm going to display the books again. But before I display them, I would like to clear the screen first. Clear the console. Okay, so I'll go ahead and clear that. Alright, so let me show you the read from file method real quick. Alright, so we have the 2 parameters here. we have our stream reader class, takes an argument of the path. The path was passed to the function, and then here we have a for loop while index is less than the object's dot length, and then index plus plus. All right, so we already know this part here. This might be a little unfamiliar to you. All right, so the first thing we do is in our array, we create a new instance of book and assign that new instance to an element in the array. Once we do that, then we can start assigning the values from the text file. So the text file through the stream reader is going to read each line sequentially, right? So it'll read the first line. Okay, so to make this a little easier, I'm going to put the files side by side. Alright, so to do that, grab the tab, and then drag it out, and then you'll see this odd symbol here appear in the middle of the screen. So just put the cursor, point to the way you want to arrange it, right? So if I want it to that side, I'm going to put it there. If I want it to this other side, I put it here. If I want it to appear on the bottom, put it there. Right, I want it to the side, so I'm just going to put it like that. Right, so then now they're both side by side. Right, and then maybe this might be a little easier to view. Okay, so then now I'm going to create a new instance of book. Once that new instance is assigned to the element in the array, then I'm going to do the stream reader dot read line, which will read the first line, which is this guy here, and it'll assign it to the title. Then for the author, it'll read the next line, put the read the line, get the author, put it in the author property of that same element. Then for the year, same thing, except the only thing with year is the data type for year is an integer, so we need to make sure to convert it before we assign it to the property. Then the loop will run again, index will be 1, then we'll create a new instance of book, assign it to the second element in the array, and then we'll get the second title with the read line, get the second author, read line, assign it to the author property, then we get the year, convert it to an integer, and then assign it to year. And that's going to happen again for this title, for this author, for this year. Then index will be at 3. Then we get this title, this year, this author, and then the year, and then the last one. Then the loop will terminate, and then we need to make sure to close the stream reader out. Okay, so the next thing we'll look at, alright, so I don't need this on the side here anymore, so I'm going to put this back on the tabs. Okay. So now let's look at the sort method. Okay, so the sorting method, I use bubble sort here. Very similar to the way we sort integers. The only difference, well, there's several differences, but one of the major differences is the temp variable, right? Because when we were swapping before, we were just swapping primitive types. We would just have here either int, or if we swap a double, then we had a double. Right, but here we're actually going to swap the entire object. Right, so your temp variable needs to be the same type as the object you're going to swap. Right, so here we're swapping books, so your temp has to be a book also. Right, and then here in the if condition, we're going to compare the titles. Right, so if the title of the first element is greater than the title of the second element, then we need to swap. Right, but you can't just do it like this. Right, because they're strings, they're not numeric values. Right, so you have to use this string.compare method, right, in order to do that. So let me show you how that works real quick. Okay, so for the string.compare method, we're comparing the first string here to the second string. If the result of this method is less than 0, then that means that the first string precedes the second string. Right, so that means that apple comes before bear, which is correct. Right, but then here we have string.compare bear apple, and the result, let's just say, is greater than 0, then that means that apple follows bear, which isn't correct. Right, bear comes after apple. And then if we do string.compare and we compare the same strings, then the result is a 0. So that means that they're both in the same, they belong in the same position or in the same place. That means they're the same. Okay, so now we go back to our method here. Alright, so if this first string follows the second string, then that means they're out of order. Right, so if the result is greater than 0, so then that means they need to be swapped. And then you just swap it the same way as you would any other type, such as an integer or a double. And then we have here our display method. So at first I print out book list, print out the line, and then I'll loop through all the books in the array. And each time I loop through a book, I'll display its information. So I'll call the display book info method, which is the one from here. Okay, so let's run this, see how it works. Right, so we have our 5 books out of order, right? Because I, D, T, R, H, right? So they're in the order as they appear in the text file. Right, so now I'm going to press any key to sort them. Right, so then now they're sorted. That's D, H, I, R, and T. Right, so now they're in alphabetical order. Okay, so we'll look at the last method here, to write to a file. Right, so now to write to a file, I'm going to pass the array and the original path. Then instead of stream writer or stream reader, we're going to use the stream writer. And then here I'm going to pass the path and an extra argument here, which tells the stream writer, instead of writing over the text file, if you set it to true here, then it will append to the text file instead. And then in the for loop, we're going to loop through all the books in the array. And this is very similar to writing to the console. Right, if you wanted to write to the console, you would do console.write line, and then whatever you wanted to write to it. So let's say I wanted to write the title, right, and that would display on the screen. But the thing is, we don't want to write it to the console. We want to write it to the stream writer. We want to put it in the text file. So instead of console, you use SW instead. So it's the same thing. You can think of it exactly as the same. Once you're finished looping through all the books in the array, don't forget to close your file. Otherwise, it won't write to it. Okay. So then I have this code here. I'm going to uncomment it. Right. So then I'm going to press any key to write to the file. And then I'm going to call the method here. Okay, write to file. Okay, so then Control F5. I'm going to display the books out of order. I'm going to sort them. Now they're in order. And then I'm going to write them back to the file. Press any key to continue. Get this pop-up message. The file's been modified. Yes to all. Let's look at what happened. Alright, so this was our original list. And then now, here's the new list in order. Alright. And let's say you don't want to keep the old data, you want to write over it. Then we can go back here to the stream writer, take this parameter off. We'll do it like that. Run it again. It'll write over the whole thing. Yes to all. Let's look at the file. You see now it wrote over it and it put them in order.